Hi you guys, and welcome back to another makeup and true crime video. I hope you guys are having an amazing day. If you're new here, my name is Zara and I post a new true crime video every single week. I would really love it if you guys would hit that subscribe button. It would mean so much to me. I really hope you guys enjoy these videos. And let's get into today's video. So today's video doesn't involve any murders. Yay! So today's case doesn't involve any type of killing, which is fantastic. It was actually a really fun case to actually research, if I can call it fun. The information is just so interesting, and I felt like I was just reading like a telenovela the whole time. I was just like, oh my god. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's case, and let's get into it. So today's case is based on a man named Ramon Sosa. And Ramon grew up in Puerto Rico and he moved to Houston when he was really young, Houston, Texas. But he went back to Puerto Rico around the age of 17 because he wanted to become a professional boxer. But when he went at 17 to do this, he quickly realized that he was basically nothing but a piece of meat to the businessmen in Puerto Rico. He was just a kid that everyone was trying to make money off of. And he realized, you know what, this is not what I want to do with my life. So he moved back to Houston and he realized his real calling in life was not to be in the center of the ring, but to be a boxing coach. So he began training professionals from the Houston area and he traveled around the country for fights. He was doing really well. He had one of the biggest boxing gyms in the Houston area. He visited the Playboy Mansion. He had photos with Hugh Hefner, with Mike Tyson. He stated that boxing at that professional level was just entertainment at that point. You get to see a lot of celebrities and you have all bills paid and everything. But he ended up growing tired of the pro scene and he turned his focus to young amateur boxers. He said that, you know, these guys, they do it for the heart, for the love of the sport, for something other than money. So for the next couple of decades, continued his love for boxing and he became one of the best coaches out there. Ramon was married to his first wife and he had 3 children with her, Mia, Mitchell, and Chris, but their marriage ended in the year 2000. And then one night when Ramon was 40 years old, while he was at this trendy Latin nightclub, in walks Maria de Lourdes Dorantes, but everyone called her Lulu for some reason. She was long and lean and had really dark hair, and she was beautiful, and she was around 35 years old at the time. Ramon had worn a Versace sweater and one of his most expensive watches to be able to get into this club. And he says he bought a beer and he just stood at the bar and he just planned to watch Lulu dance, which is kind of creepy. But when she walked past him, she stepped on his toes and he's like, I swear these were like 6-inch heels. And he was beginning to see stars, which is quite dramatic. But Lulu bent down and she was like, please, I'm so sorry. What can I do? How can I help? And Ramon was like, well, you can dance with me. So it probably was just a ploy to be so dramatic, just to get her attention, I guess. Maybe she didn't even step on his toes, who knows? But that was the start of their whirlwind romance. And Ramon says that Lulu really captivated him. She said she would give him massages, manicures, pedicures, like if he was having a drink and before that drink even finished, she would hand him a new one. She would serve his food on a plate. She was just kind of overboard in the way she treated him. But like any man, of course, Ramon loved it. So by the year 2009, Lulu and Ramon were married. Ramon's son, Chris, says that when his dad and Lulu got married, Lulu treated his dad like a king, but she would look at other members of his family like, psh, like she was proud of being his wife, but she didn't respect the rest of his family the same way. But Chris says, you know, his dad was in love with her, so his family decided to love her too. Lulu had followed a wave of Mexican expats, and that is how she entered the US on a visitor's visa. So she was originally from Mexico, and she had actually left 2 of her teenage children in Mexico, and she wasn't legally allowed to work in the United States, so she paid the bills by cleaning houses and giving massages until her and Ramon got married in 2009. Chris states that as soon as Lulu and his dad got married, Lulu ran and got all her paperwork sorted, you know, her green card, her driver's license, you know, her paperwork, just everything. And it all happened so quick. So to him, it was clearly a marriage of convenience and benefit to Lulu. She was, you know, living the American dream. A year and a half later, Lulu and Ramon opened a gym together called Woodlands Boxing and Fitness. Lulu ended up becoming a trainer at the gym, and now she basically owned half of the gym. Ramon states that this time in his life he was super happy. He believed all his dreams were coming true, and each month the gym pulled in about 200 clients. They were bringing in around $18,000 to $20,000 a month. That's just on memberships. That's a lot of money. So Lulu and Ramon ended up using that money to buy a brand new home. It was a 2-story home. They ended up buying motorcycles and cars. And Lulu liked to dress, in designer clothing. And Ramon states that she always loved to go to the store and she would literally buy everything every time she was there. Ramon states they spent a lot of money in those years together, and it was good. Life was good. They were really enjoying and living it up. Chris states his father, Ramon, was very proud of his kids about how successful they were. Chris was actually a comedian, or is a comedian, in Hollywood. And he states that Ramon would actually post on Facebook about how proud he was of his kids, about what his kids were doing, what they were accomplishing. And he was the type of dad who would shout from the rooftops about how amazing his kids were. And my kids are doing this. Do you know my kids have done that? Do you know what my kids have done? Do you know my kids have done this? He was super proud of his kids and he would always talk about them. Lulu's kids, on the other hand, were not so great. They didn't do well in school. They were just overall rough around the edges, at least compared to his kids. And whenever Lulu felt insecure about her kids' failures or lack of accomplishments, she would use the excuse that, they didn't grow up with a father, so they didn't have a good role model. You can't blame them. It's not their fault. Lulu ended up becoming bitter towards Ramon whenever he would praise his kids. Excuse me, why aren't you praising my children too? But Ramon was like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm proud of my kids. What have your kids done for me to be proud of? Nothing. So what the heck? Why would I talk about them? Obviously, Lulu was like, what? Excuse me, Lulu didn't like this. She just felt that Ramon was favoring his kids and always, bragging about them and not giving the same attention that she believes he should have been giving to her children. But I mean, if your kids are pieces of shit, what do you want? What do you want from me, All of this obviously started building up on Lulu and Ramon's relationship, and they began clashing. Ramon actually sponsored Lulu, her mother, and her 2 teenage children to help them obtain a US citizenship and visa. This process took about 3 years. According to Ramon, only once her family got US citizenship did more cracks appear in the marriage. He says there was an altercation when they went on a trip to Puerto Rico. Ramon says that Lulu knew exactly what buttons to push and what to say to aggravate him. Ramon states that they ended up getting into an argument in Puerto Rico, and Lulu tells Ramon, you know what, I'm gonna call your mother. And then Ramon says he pulls the phone out of Lulu's hand and he's like, what? I'm a grown-ass man and you're gonna call my mother? He said, the problem's between you and me and not my mom, you weirdo. So he claims after this, Lulu ends up calling hotel security and claimed that Ramon was in the hotel room abusing her. After listening to both sides, the head of security ends up telling them, you know what, go and sleep in separate rooms. So after all this, in March 2015, Lulu ends up filing for divorce, and Ramon says she wanted everything. She just wanted for him to leave and for her to keep the house, the cars, the money, the gym, everything. She wanted everything for herself. She's like, you don't get shit, give it all to me. And Ramon was like, excuse me, I've worked so hard for everything. There's absolutely zero chance I'm giving you everything. If you want a divorce, we're going to divorce the right way. We're going to split everything 50-50. But Lulu was like, no, we aren't. Give me everything. What do you mean I can't have everything? Daddy, I want more. I want it all, Daddy.
Give it to me now.
Ramon at the time had a non-profit organization running through his gym, and he claims that Lulu actually contacted the sponsors of this non-profit and accused Ramon of embezzling money, causing the sponsors to actually drop his non-profit and forcing it to close. Lulu also began going around and telling friends and clients of the gym that Ramon was abusing her. Ramon's own relatives, including his mother and daughter, said they had never ever witnessed Ramon abusing anyone, any family member, including Lulu. Lulu, however, persisted, thinking that, you know what, the more I accuse him of things, the more chance I'm gonna get everything in the divorce. So she would try to stage scenes for evidence to implicate Ramon as an abuser. She would place alcohol bottles around him as he slept to try and prove he was an alcoholic. She would hit herself with things or run into things and then take pictures of all the bruises to show people look, Ramon's hitting me. I've got evidence. I'm keeping a track of everything. Investigators would later state that they found no wrongdoing of Ramon relating to his nonprofit. He was never embezzling any money. And they also found no evidence that Ramon was abusive towards Lulu. There was zero evidence. At this point, Lulu's doing everything she can to take Ramon down. So Ramon was like, this bitch is crazy. So he ends up moving out of their 2-story home and he ends up moving in with his mother. Now, way before Lulu ever came onto the scene, there was a man named Mundo who worked for Ramon, and he was actually an ex-con, and he had sort of a trouble past. Well, he did have a trouble past. He was part of a gang, and he just got into a lot of problems when he was young. And in 2005, Mundo actually entered Ramon's gym, and Ramon took him under his wing, and he really treated him like a son. Mundo says Ramon was the first male figure in his life who ever took any interest in his life. He set ground rules for Mundo, and he would check in on him all the time, making sure that he was going on the right path and he wasn't, leading astray and getting back into the problems he had when he was a kid. Mundo says he vividly remembers the first time he laid eyes on Lulu. He said she walked into the gym and she just began calling all the shots as if she, owned the place. This was before they were married. He said when they started their own gym, Ramon and Lulu, she put in a lot of work and she basically took care of the business. Well, obviously she did. She's getting a free business. Ramon's family embraced Mundo and they took him in, as if he was their own. Mundo says he wasn't even looking for a father, but that's exactly what Ramon treated him like. And he states that Lulu became, a good friend to him. Lulu would also complain about Ramon to Mundo, but Mundo always just tried to stay out of the situation. He just didn't want to get involved. So 3 months after Lulu filed for divorce from Ramon, Mundo says it was a really hot night and he walks into the gym and he sees that Lulu is in the gym office with her teenage daughter. And he says that they were just talking about the gym and about a kid who had been at the gym was talking about how his uncle was some kind of a killer down in Mexico. They were talking about how his uncle, how his uncle gets rid of his victims. He cuts up their bodies and disposes of them. So Mundo then ends up walking into the office, like, what the hell are you guys talking about? When he hears Lulu say, oh, I wonder if this uncle can help with our situation. So Mundo was like, okay, I'm pretty sure the situation, this situation is Ramon. So he ends up talking to Lulu and he's like encouraging her to tell him what she's talking about because he's like, what's going on? What are you guys discussing? So Lulu begins talking to Mundo and says, you know what? I'm just tired. I'm frustrated. I wish that Ramon would leave. I wish the cops would just pick him up and take him somewhere. I just wish somebody would make him disappear. According to Mundo, he asks her like, okay, what do you mean disappear? And he ends up making like a gun sign with his fingers like bang, bang. And she goes, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, psh, kill him. Lulu had come to the conclusion like, yo, Ramon wants to split everything. That's not gonna work for me. So if he's gone, duh, I get everything. Plus life insurance probably. So Mundo determines like, dang, okay, now Lulu's in the process of ordering a hit on Ramon. She wants him dead. Mundo says he walked away because he just didn't know what to do. He was so confused and distracted by what he had heard. So he walks back to Lulu and says, you know what? I have somebody who can help you. Mundo tells Lulu he knows someone called Paco, and this man was such a badass. He was so well respected by his community and by the gangs in his area that his face was painted on a mural 2 stories high. Mundo told Lulu that Paco and John Boy were the people he was going to contact to get this hit sorted. Mundo said that he, through his upbringing, he knew what the eyes of a murderer looked like. And when he saw this in Lulu, he was like, shit, like, I got to do something about this. So as soon as Mundo left the gym, he makes the call, but he didn't call up Paco and John Boy. He called up Ramon. He was like, yo, Ramon, this lady out here wants to kill you. Ramon was like, shut up, stop playing, like, this isn't funny. And Mundo was like, look, no, I'm serious. I have seen this look before. This lady, your wife, she wants you dead. Ramon was like, don't play like that. Like, he was in shock. He was angry. He didn't know what to do. I mean, if someone told me like, they're trying to kill me, what do you do? Like, what do you do? But Mundo, he said, you know what? Look, I have a plan. He told Ramon, you're going to play the hitman. You're going to buy another phone, a burner phone, and you're going to use this phone as if you're someone called Paco. They went over the details and agreed that Mundo should relay on the message to Lulu on this new phone that for the right price, Paco would be the one to kill Ramon. Later, after they set up the burner phone, Lulu is with Mundo and they're sitting together and Lulu gets a text from Paco, which is actually Ramon, from this burner phone with an offer saying, you know what, for the right price, he was willing to kill Ramon. So Mundo ends up texting Paco back while Lulu was sitting right next to him watching this text encounter and said, look, $1,000 for the hit, and you also get Ramon's pickup truck for free. Just throw it in there like a bonus. Now, Mundo's choice for the name Paco was not actually random. If you guys have seen this, oh my God. Paco is the name of the main character in the movie. It's like 1993 called Blood In, Blood Out. Have you guys seen that movie? You need to leave a comment down below because it's one of my favorite movies. So this movie is about like 3 Chicanos in LA like navigating their life and like gang life. And Paco was actually played by Benjamin Bratt, who was so dreamy at the time. But Paco was so admired and feared as a leader that another character actually paints a mural of him on this concrete wall alongside the Los Angeles River. And at the end of the movie, it's going to be a spoiler, so close your ears if you haven't seen the movie. Paco, turns out, is an undercover cop. So Mundo like made up this whole thing based on this movie, and he felt he was kind of giving Lulu like a warning, like a subliminal message, you know?
Simónese, come on! El gallo negro, the baddest Chicano in the barrio.
Well, that ain't me, not anymore.
But he said, you know, it felt right. So Lulu agreed to have Mundo help her out because they also agreed that Mundo, you know, would get a piece of the pie too. He told Lulu, like, you know what, I know what Ramon is worth, so I want in, and once the deal is done, you go this way out of Texas and I'll go this way out of Texas and we'll just never speak of this again. And Lulu just completely trusted Mundo. She was like, okay, well, you know, let's do this. So now once this plan was in action, Mundo begins to record secretly his conversations with Lulu because he wanted to gather just more and more evidence for Ramon. In one recording, Lulu is heard going through Ramon's watch collection, and you can hear her saying in Spanish, you know, a golden one, a Bulova, a black one, which is a fossil. Fossil watches aren't even expensive. Like, so anyway, she decides to use various watches, like inexpensive jewelry, and an additional $500 cash to use as a down payment for Paco. So just before the July 4th holiday, Lulu hands Mundo $100 to give to the hitman to buy a stolen gun. So now that they've got this cash from Lulu, Ramon and Mundo decide, you know what, we need to go to the police. But Ramon wanted Mundo to go too. He didn't want to go by himself because they had been doing, you know, all of this together. Now, this was really difficult for Mundo because he was a former gang member and he was sworn to never talk to the police about anything. And he said even if he tried, you know, to make people understand that he was doing this to save his friend's life, they just wouldn't get it. Like, he would be a rat. It was ratting. So in the interrogation video, a detective can be heard asking Mundo, like, yo, has she used the word dead? Has she specifically said she wants Ramon dead? And Mundo was like, yeah, hell yeah. He points to a text message that Lulu had sent him that said muertas, which means dead in Spanish. In the video, Mundo spends more than an hour speaking with the detectives and telling them about all his conversations with Lulu, and he then hands over the $100 that Lulu had given him along with all the recordings of their calls together or of their discussions together. And near the very end of this, you know, conversation with the police, Mundo decides to reveal his past to the detectives and says, you know what, I used to be a gang member. I've got a criminal past, so I'm pretty sure that's what attracted Lulu to me. He tries to explain to the detectives that by coming out and by talking to them, you know, he was going to be in danger. He broke a major code and he believed that there would be consequences for him. And surprisingly, the police actually found this, you know, quite noble of Mundo. Considering his background and where he came from, snitches and, you know, ratas were not looked upon favorably. And the detectives believed that this actually showed Mundo's true character. You know, he was a good person. So over the course of 3 weeks, Mundo was able to record 12 conversations with Lulu. And in one, Lulu tells Mundo, I think Ramon will be signing divorce papers on July 22nd. And she says, you know what, Mundo, I'm desperate. I can't let him sign those divorce papers. I can't stand this anymore. I have a giant headache. I have everything to lose. I'm sick over this. And you know what, guys? She has a giant headache. It makes sense. Now she has to kill him because she can't live with this giant headache. I mean, why would you expect her to, you know? She complains that she won't get any alimony and that Ramon was no longer paying the mortgage and she was running out of cash. She said Ramon hadn't given her a single penny since February. How dare he not give her any money? You know what I mean? Like, how dare he expect her to go and get a job? So then she adds, they better kill him before the 22nd because I need this done ASAP. That way I'll have insurance, I'll have pension for life. My life will be all figured out. Mundo, do you know what I'm saying? He worked hard all his life for his retirement. Well, now it's time for me to work hard on my retirement. She said, this is my retirement, Mundo. His life is my retirement. So you better kill him. So Mundo says like, okay, so from now until the court date, you want him dead. You want his murder to take place in between these dates. Is that convenient for you? You know, like, does it work? And during these recordings, you can hear Mundo tell Lulu several times, like, look, if you change your mind, we can change, like, we can abandon this plan. You don't need to do it. Like, you know, if you change your mind, basically, I get it. He said, nobody's forcing you to do it. Like, you know, we can just abandon this plan and move on. And Lulu was like, no, it's a decision I've already made. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So in one final attempt, you know, to save Lulu, basically, in a way, Mundo texts her like, look, just remember, once he's gone, he's gone. There's no way back from this. And this was all taking place in Spanish, by the way, but I have no energy to try and translate that. And Lulu writes back, clearer than water. Like, I'm so freaking clear that I want him dead. Like, I am not going to regret this. I'm not going to come back from this. So now Mundo is strapped with a hidden camera. And he goes and meets with Lulu and he tells her like, okay, look, Paco is sitting in his car right over there. Let's go meet him. So he encourages Lulu to like get out of her car and come into Paco's car. Lulu never even suspects that Paco could be an undercover officer. Like, she fully trusted Mundo. So Lulu climbs into the front seat of this Paco's car and Mundo gets into the back seat. And the officer begins speaking in Spanish to Lulu and says, what's up? And Lulu immediately begins venting to Paco. He's a freaking hitman in her eyes. And says, what hasn't he done to me? He's ruining my life. That son of a bitch. I just can't deal with all of this. And the undercover officer, Paco, responds, well, do you want him pretty beaten up? Do you want us to beat him then kill him? Or, you know, what kind of order do you want to place? And Lulu immediately says, no, I don't want him beaten up. I just want him dead. And Paco says, well, do you want to talk to him one last time before we kill him? Give him, you know, one last message. And Lulu says, no, I don't want to talk to him. I just want him dead. Just kill him. And she said, for me, it's better that he's dead than allowing him to live and continue screwing up my life. So while this encounter was happening, another detective was sitting in a car nearby and was watching as Lulu handed over Paco the down payment to the hit. And he says he was like so struck by the lack of emotion on Lulu's face. And he says, you know, in his years of being a detective, when you're dealing with someone that has a lack of emotion, no empathy, no sympathy, those are the people that are truly, truly dangerous individuals. Mundo says he remembers getting out of the truck, you know, after the deal was made with Lulu, and she shakes his hand and he didn't even want to touch her. Not, you know, out of disgust or hate, but more so out of sadness because he felt like, dang, I'm really betraying my friend. But Lulu ends up pulling him in for a hug. And, you know, he said he continued to hug her and he held on for a little bit longer because he knew what was about to happen. But Lulu clearly had no idea that she was being fully set up. So the police, together with Ramon and Mundo, they end up coming up with the plan, and they say that the best idea they believe was to fake Ramon's death. Officers actually learned how to fake his death and come up with his injuries on YouTube, which is so funny. They watched tutorials on YouTube and they went to the grocery store and they got corn syrup and food coloring to make the blood, and they borrowed the makeup kits normally used for like disaster drills. And Ramon says it looked like they were just playing with like Halloween makeup. It did not look professional at all, and it looked like stuff they would have used for kids, and it looked super amateur, and he wasn't even sure about it, but he said that, you know, they did it right. They ended up doing everything right. The police were basically doing this because they wanted a slam dunk case. They didn't want there to be any doubt that Lulu wasn't going to go ahead with it or that she was going to say, I never wanted this to happen. They basically wanted to show Lulu that, you know, Ramon was dead and that her plan had been carried out. They thought that the jury possibly, you know, would feel sorry for this beautiful woman, you know, with no police record. So their plan begins, and Ramon lays on the floor of an unmarked SUV. It was a police vehicle, and they drove into this restricted area where a dump truck's unload like mud and debris that they collect from like county sites. So in there, amongst all this dirt and mud, they end up digging a grave for Ramon. And it wasn't even cold, but Ramon said it was so eerie and everything just felt so creepy. The fact that he was like sitting in his own, you know, what was supposed to be his grave. And he said he was closing his eyes and he was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, what am I doing here? And then, you know, he began to think about Lulu and he was like, what is this life coming to? Like, why does this have to happen? It could have been a simple divorce. It never should have happened. None of this should be happening right now. And in that moment, he says, is when he realized that, dang, she never loved me. It was all about the money. So now let's fast forward to July 22nd. Lulu gets back into Paco's truck, and this time there are 2 hidden cameras inside the vehicle pointing directly at her face, and Paco tells her in Spanish, we got Ramon in the morning. Lulu shows no emotion, no reaction, and she simply just states, I've got the money, I've got the $1,000. First of all, who the heck is going to kill somebody for $1,000? $1,000? Who the hell is going to do that? Who is going to do that? Lulu was an idiot in the first place for thinking that that was really a deal, okay? So the agent then holds out a picture, or Paco holds out the picture on a cell phone, and he shows Lulu a picture of Ramon in a grave. Like, you guys have to see this photo. It is so insane. He legit looks dead. Like, how would you know? So as he's showing Lulu this photo, he goes, okay, what do you think? Lulu still shows no emotion, and instead she's like digging for details about what happened. Paco gives her just enough information. He says he really fought for his life. He didn't want to die, and his truck is now at a chop shop. Lulu, after hearing this, calmly suggests like, okay, well, maybe we should use FaceTime from now on for communication to avoid tracking by the police. And then after she says this, she pauses for a second and she says, Ramon won't get up anymore. And then she cracks up laughing. And the detective who was playing Paco said at that moment, like, his bones just began to chill because he was so creeped out by her cackle and how crazy she sounded. So the next morning, Ramon's in hiding. Officers end up going to the gym and they find Lulu there. And they tell her, like, look, we've received a missing persons report for your husband. And Lulu says, look, I don't know where Ramon is. I haven't seen him. So officers were like, okay, she's already lying to us. So we have her lying. We can arrest her. So Lulu is then arrested in front of her teenage daughter and her mother. And they then transport her to the same interrogation room that Mundo and Ramon actually told the police, you know, her plans. The police at this point were like playing no games. They're like, we got you. We don't need anything else. Like, you're done. And I think in the interrogation room, they tell her like, yo, your husband ain't dead. It was all a setup and you're done. So in October of 2016, Maria Lulu pleaded guilty to the murder for hire scheme, and she was sentenced to 20 years in prison. She had been denied parole at every single turn, and with the year she had already served waiting for her trial, she is due for release sometime in the year 2035, which would make her around 61 years old when she is released. Through the entire trial, Lulu did not look at Ramon. She refused to look at him, and she showed no remorse for her actions, which doesn't surprise me. I mean, she wanted him dead, so she's clearly like so mad. And at that point, she, you know, accepted the fact that she was duped. No one from Lulu's family ever spoke publicly in her defense. I guess none of them wanted to be associated with someone who was so dumb in thinking that someone would kill someone for $1,000. Like, Lulu is now 47 years old and she is in a prison in Gatesville, Texas. Lulu was greedy and cold-hearted. She was, you know, someone who came from nothing. She married into wealth and she thought she hit the jackpot and she was going to get it all, and resorting to murder to get it all. She saw Ramon as like an obstacle, you know, in her way, in her path of like richness, and she wanted to eliminate him in order to live her dream life, you know. Remember, he was her retirement plan, you know what I mean? So there's lots of great articles about what Ramon thinks about all of this, and it's so interesting. And I'm glad that, you know, he was safe. No one was killed. No one had to die for money yet again. And I hope you guys found this case as interesting as I did. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button and go ahead and hit the subscribe button too. It would really mean so much to me. And thanks for watching, guys. If you want to check out some of my other videos, click over here. And I will see you in the next one, guys. Besitos. Mwah. Bye.